second. Hey, everybody. My name is Rick Robinson. This is
Travis Green. Good afternoon. We are excited to be here with you again today. What do we have to talk about today?
Well, first of all, it's a beautiful day.
It is a beautiful
Finally,
day.
again.
Yes, it is. You know, spring's coming. Believe it or not, it's going to come, and we are excited about that. We want to give a shout out real quick to one of our local businesses. Can we do that right now?
Let's do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is Blisters. If you've not been to Blisters, you need to do this. This place is over west of town in a gas station. It's a small place, but with a big taste. They have been nationally recognized by the Food Network. This is where North Carolina meets Idaho grit. I mean, this is where it comes together. Great stuff. Go there. Blisters, just west of town.
Yep. If you guys are looking for a good date night with your spouse, go there. I personally have not been, so I need to go get my.
Yeah, that's good stuff. They cater and go there for lunch, date night, whatever. Just go see them.
Yep. Guys, we're excited to have you here on the Rexburg Hustle with us today. It's got to be Friday. My brain can't even think straight anymore. But stay tuned next week, guys. Next Wednesday, we're going to have Shane McCain on the podcast with us. She's going to be talking about just some struggles she's had in her life with disabilities and depression and different things. So it should be a very, very good episode. She'll be here Wednesday at, I believe, at 1:30 here live streamed. And today, though, we do have two very good friends of mine. I'm very excited to have them here with us. It's Chris and Audrey Lambert. They have been married in May. It'll be 10 years. They have 4 beautiful kids. Between the two of them, they have 3 college degrees. So they are very studious. Studious. Is that how you say it? Studious?
Sure.
I only have 1 college degree, so I haven't learned how to quite say that word very well.
Right.
But Audrey is a musician. She is a professor up on campus here at BYU Idaho. Chris works for a landscape company. He specializes in landscape design and landscape build. 2 very, very talented people, 2 wonderful friends, and 2 very great community members. Chris and Audrey Lambert, why don't you guys come on up? And the crowd goes wild.
That's right.
If you want to, sure.
Hello.
Well, guys, welcome. Thanks
Good
for coming on the
afternoon.
show. We
Thank you.
sure
Thanks for
appreciate
having
you guys.
Can you see? Okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, headphones are working. Everything's good.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm good.
Yeah.
Perfect. Now, you guys, I know we've kind of talked to the audience a little bit. That today we're going to be talking a little bit about marriage. And you guys have kind of had a journey through marriage, I guess, like any married couple has. And but you guys have. I'm anxious to hear what you guys have to say, because I know that you guys have been through some things, have been able to overcome some things. So why don't you guys just kind of kick it off for us and kind of tell us what we're going to be talking about today?
You know, let me just before you do, everybody, we've brought them on because of their story, and as Rick has announced, the next podcast is also about some very real life stuff, things that we all deal with, things that are real, that hit home. So as you listen and tune in, we want you to respond. We want your stories as well. This is the real stuff. This is the meat and the potatoes of life and people helping one another. So we are excited to hear what you've learned, what your story is, and frankly, maybe we can learn something from it.
Awesome.
So,
Well, we're
yeah.
excited to be here.
For sure. Yeah. Thank you, guys. So just, I guess, to start us off, you know, Travis and Rick, I guess, introduced us there and kind of talked about some of our successes in life. And, you know, I think the biggest thing to remember is all of these successes, they came with a price. And that's kind of why we wanted to, you know, Rick asked us what we wanted to talk about, and why we wanted to kind of talk about our story was to kind of talk about the price that we paid in obtaining all of these great things that we've accomplished in our lives. We don't regret any of it, but we've definitely learned some great things along the way. So,
Chris and I always joke that we don't have the typical fairy tale love story.
That's very
you
true.
know, you grow up and people tell you that you're going to fall in love and that it's happily ever after. And when Chris and I met, I was 18, he was 20. He was preparing to serve a mission for the church and for our church. And I was madly in love with someone else who was also preparing for a mission for our church.
I won.
And
Yes,
saying.
that's good. That's good.
and we met at a stake dance, or a dance that the church provides for the youth. And I don't go to these things. And the only reason that I went was because it was the last one before I was going to go to school at BYU Idaho. So I went, and he happened to be there, and my family had just moved to his part of town, and so we exchanged numbers, and for some reason, when I went off to school, we kept in touch. And he would randomly call me, and I would randomly call him. He left on his mission, and that's when my life started to get pretty rocky. You know, people grow up living a certain way, and then things come into their lives that challenge the way that they have been taught their whole life. And that's kind of what I was going through while Chris was on his mission. And he would write me and he would be like, "Hey, I love you. Let's get married." And I was like, right. Nope. And he came home and did the same thing. And we had this conversation where it was like, "I'm in love with you. Like, I love you, but I don't know if I'm in love with you." And he was very persistent.
Yeah, I'm very convincing.
And
I think I missed my calling as a debater.
That's right.
he would have been successful, that's for sure. So months, I think.
I gotta
Go
say,
ahead.
we might get along really well because my wife is always telling me, and she's probably watching, that I am the greatest salesman when I want something. Anyway, go ahead.
That's him.
Yeah.
That's him. So it took some effort on my part to figure out if he was someone that I wanted to spend my life with. And I decided that I would take that leap of faith. And we got married. I was getting my bachelor's degree in vocal performance at BYU Idaho, and he was continuing his degree. I got pregnant. I graduated. I got accepted to a master's degree at Michigan State University. We drove to Michigan with a 3-month-old. I started my master's degree. Halfway through my master's degree, I got pregnant again a month before.
Not on purpose.
He was a surprise
Yeah.
because it took us a while to get pregnant with the first. Not by any means 7 years or anything, but it was a year and
Sure.
and a miscarriage. So halfway through, I had Trek a month before I started my second year of my master's degree, and that's when things started to get pretty rocky. On my end, Chris is, I don't know, do I say typical guy? Am I allowed to say that?
Sure.
I think you
Sure.
can say,
And
it's 3
discon-
against 1 here, so
Yeah.
there may be
Disconnected
argument.
from emotions, and he was working nights and taking care of the kids during the day, and then I was working at the school and working on my degree. So by year 7, we had 3 children, and it was, we would have these conversations where we would say things like, "I love you, but I have no idea who you are anymore." And we'd lost the ability to communicate with each other. We didn't know how to talk about our dreams and our aspirations anymore. And we asked for help. And someone mentioned this marriage enrichment.
Well, and
Go
if I
ahead.
just interrupt,
Yeah.
just a lot of that came down to, so like Audrey mentioned, we met just before she moved to my hometown. So we knew each other for about 5 years before we were actually married. Of that 5 years, we lived in the same state for about 2 months. So most of our relationship was pretty long distance. When I was on my mission, it was all snail mail. Outside of the mission, it was phone calls and things like that. So we got to know each other that way. And so I would say that our relationship, when we started, we were in love. I won't say that we weren't. Absolutely not. Right? Am I okay to say that?
We were.
Okay, good.
We did love each other.
I just had to make sure we were on the same page on that one.
Yeah.
But we didn't really know each other the way most couples do, being able to be around each other and getting to know each other by being close to each other. And so I think initially we started off with, I'll say, a little bit of a handicap. We started off our relationship. And moving forward with both of our hopes and dreams and aspirations, starting to have kids early. We didn't wait before we had kids. We kind of jumped right into it. Like Audrey mentioned, our second was kind of a surprise. Weren't really planning on that one.
His words to me were, this was 3 months after we were married. He said, "I'm not getting any younger."
Right.
And
I
if
was
I
a
could
little
go
older
back
when
to
we
that
got
moment,
married.
I would be like,
Yeah.
I'm the one that needs to
You're
worry
gonna
about
be
that.
fine.
Yeah.
You
yeah.
do not.
Yeah.
Sure.
So no, I was definitely excited to have kids, and and so I think if I could go back, we'd probably wait a little bit longer and work on our relationship a little bit more. But anyway, just wanted to give that little bit of a background there.
Okay.
So we
Great.
went to this marriage enrichment weekend in Provo, Utah, which was Christian based and got us talking and dialoguing. We would write letters to each other. They would give us a question, like anywhere from how do you feel about our intimate life, to how do you feel when I say I love you, to how do you feel when your kids tell you that you love you, that they love you.
Or and even hard topics. Where do you see us financially in 5 years?
Yeah.
Where do you see us when we retire? Just any aspect of the relationship. There's questions about it that we would, like she said, we would write each other a letter to talk about it.
Yeah, and then we would exchange those letters, read them, and then I would say, okay, Chris, this is what I hear you're saying to me. And then I would ask him, is there more? And if I got it, he would say, no, we're good, and we could move on.
So just out of curiosity, going through that exercise together, was it eye-opening to both of you guys? I mean, do you feel like you were on the same page as you were writing these letters back and forth, or were you now kind of learning new things about each other?
Do you have anything you want to say? Because I have an answer.
I would. We'll see if they match. It'll be like the newlywed game here. I would say no. I would say we were not on the same page, and I would say that those letters really helped us to kind of dive in and realize where those disconnects were, and the benefit to this exercise. And we kind of failed to continue doing it after this enrichment weekend. But the benefit to that was, a lot of times I've found, we're guilty of it, I've seen other couples guilty of it, when they try to communicate about these issues that they're having, you start to listen for your response. You hear what they're saying and start to formulate your argument, your response, your whatever, so you're not really listening. You're just waiting to say what you want to say. With these letters, you have about 10 minutes and you can put it all on a piece of paper, say whatever you want, however you want, and you're not interrupted. And then reading through it, you're able to really dive into what they're saying, and you can kind of write notes on it as well as to what your thoughts on it. But it really, I think, helped us to get our feelings out without the fear of being interrupted.
Sorry, one more quick question before you guys keep going. How hard was it to read those letters that the other spouse read?
My turn.
She's got something.
So just to piggyback on the question that you just asked and also answer the question that you just asked, I agree. We were not on the same page, but I was also very grateful because I remember having a conversation with Christopher, like, this is my list of things that I need from you. And this is how I need help. And this is how I need my cup to be filled. And then I would sit and I'd be like, okay, what is your list? Because I have a laundry list. And if I have a laundry list, there's got to be something that you want me to improve on. And he would say, oh, no, you're perfect. And I would get so angry because I'm not perfect. And I can be aggressive and I can be belligerent. Is that, would you agree?
I mean, you're describing yourself right now. I'm not going to jump in. Please keep
and
going.
I can be very passive aggressive. So it was nice to finally hear, this is what you're doing that hurts me. And this is what I need you to improve on. And that was a hard pill to swallow. It was a hard pill to swallow. Because going into our relationship, I would not say that I was 100% sure about our relationship. I knew that I loved him. I knew that I wanted to be with him. But when you compare it to Cinderella and Snow White, that was not my experience. So, but when I knew Chris loved me without a shadow of a doubt. So to hear that might not have been the case, that he felt about me the way I felt about him, that shook my world a little bit.
Do you think that there's a lot of people out there that have that enter marriage with unrealistic expectations, with that Cinderella story that you're talking about, and then the kids happen, and then life happens, and then the roller coasters happen, then all of a sudden what started as love and romance and attraction suddenly starts diverting and going different ways, and then the contention and all the other stuff starts happening. I mean, I don't think you're alone in this. And so that's what's so great about your story. And I'm intrigued by the letter, by the letters that you wrote to each other describing, okay, sweetie, look, I get it, but here's what I need. I know you're doing this, but I need this. You can't. I believe, and I've heard this many times, that the husband and the wife can't completely fulfill each other's needs. That's true.
Right.
But there are certain common threads that have to be there, right. And for you to be able to say it and explain it and say, look, we gotta reset here. Yes, we were in love enough to start this whole thing. Yeah. Something happened, life happened, kids happened, chaos happened, school happened, all this stuff happened, life happened, and got us going the wrong direction. Let's come back together again.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'll just to play on that as well. I'll jump forward a little bit. This enrichment weekend that we went to, it wasn't a fix all. We don't have the fairy tale story still. We don't have the Snow White story where we're just madly in love every second of every day, and there's nothing that can change that.
Sounds
I
like you're normal.
disagree.
That's great.
Yeah, right. We'll fight about that one later, I'm sure. But the point being, you're absolutely right, Travis. A lot of people start their relationship with those unrealistic expectations, and life gets in the way. And for those who are willing to work through it and communicate on both sides, which is hard to do, I'll speak for the guys, it's hard to do. But who are willing to do that can work through that. That doesn't fix it. Even just today, just on the drive home before we came to the studio here, I looked at Audrey and I said, our lives are too busy. We've got way too much going on. You know, she's taken off for the weekend for a girls' weekend down in Idaho Falls, and you know, I'm at home with the kids. And I just told her, I said, we're so busy that we don't have a whole lot of time for each other. And so it's a constant cycle. It's a constant up and down, and constantly having to work on that, just like you said there, Travis.
The thing I'm going to tell you, I'm going to open up my soul.
Yes.
Chris's biggest complaint to me on that weekend was that I went to my girlfriends for emotional support. And there were some things that played into that we've talked about, that when I went to Christopher, do you mind if I tell them this?
Go for it.
When I went to
We're being
Christopher
open books today.
for emotional support, it was like this wall. I don't know. I'll show you.
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And I would get, uh-huh.
I never look
And
like
I'm
that.
like, when I'm talking to my girlfriends, they will look at me and I know, just like you guys are, you are listening to me and engaged in the conversation. And if there was a lull and you had something to say, you would say it. But with Christopher, that's not what was happening, which is, I guess I'm kind of saying it was your fault, huh?
She's throwing me under the bus.
So I would go where I would get some feedback and someone
Yeah.
to help counsel me through the things that I was struggling with. And I lost my train of thought.
Well, that's what. But what I'm picking up is not. I mean, great guy, but maybe what you needed from him, what he just couldn't. He couldn't give you quite what you needed in that specific area, so you had other friends to help, which is great. I mean, there's
Right.
there's nothing wrong with
and it's necessary.
Yeah.
But as we've come through this, he number one, he's gotten better to the point where I usually will go to him first before I talk to my girlfriends. I will still go to my girlfriends, but he's become this place where I like lean on him and he gives me what I need.
And just out of curiosity on that note, so I mean, Chris, congratulations, you're just a typical guy, because you know, I feel like, I know I'm guilty of that as well. I know 100%, and I'm sorry, like I am like, you know, I know, at least from the guy's standpoint, it doesn't mean that like we love our spouses any less.
Right.
I think it's the way that guys are wired. You know,
Right.
we're not. At least most guys. I think some guys are very emotional, but
Absolutely.
for the most part, you know, guys are. I mean, it's something that men struggle with. So, just out of curiosity, you know, as that was coming up, as you guys were on, you know, away at this weekend, did they have any advice or anything about you going to your girlfriends to get that support that you needed? Did they say whether that was good or whether that was bad, or whether you need it or shouldn't do it? I guess, or what have you guys learned personally from that?
That's a good question.
I want to hear your answer.
No, go ahead.
That was a discovery that we'd made in our relationship, so they didn't have much advice for that.
Yeah, I was just going to say, kind of the theme of that weekend really was communication. How do you communicate with your spouse? You know, being honest and open with each other. That was really the theme of that whole weekend. They really didn't address individual issues, specific things like that. Like Audrey said, that was something we kind of discovered later on in the relationship, was that it was almost a feeling, and I don't know if this is typical for guys, maybe this is where I did have some emotion, but almost feeling left behind and left out of her life and her experiences. Good and bad, she shared that with her friends because I wasn't that safe place to go. I wasn't the friend that I was before we got married. We were really good friends before, married, engaged, and even when we first got married, we were really, really good friends. And I think somewhere along the way that got lost in work, in school, in being parents, in finances, in everything. That friendship kind of got lost, and so she still had that friendship outside of our relationship, and so she leaned more on that.
I love what you just said about safety. And I think that that's the key is, from what I'm hearing from you, and good advice for all of us, is to develop that kind of relationship with your spouse where you are safe, where you can come and talk. Dear, I've got this issue, this question, this problem. I didn't like what you did the other day, or I have whatever it may be, and be able to say, okay, let's talk about it, rather than the wall go up or whatever it is.
Right.
So that is a great lesson that I appreciate that I'm learning from you as you talk. So now my question is, now we've gone through this road of love, times of whatever, of discovery. Now we're back on track, better than ever. Where do we go from here? How do you view the future now that you've got this fresh breath of, okay, I think we're getting somewhere. I think we've got things going the right direction, and I love you again. What does the future hold? I'm just curious. What are your dreams?
Well, funny that you should ask. I had just applied for my doctorate degree.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I was not accepted.
Too bad.
So,
but at least you're going for it.
right.
Where before you may not have.
Right. I just applied. I wasn't accepted. I feel very confident about how it went. I feel like the reason that I'm not there is because that's not where God wants me to be. And so Chris is pursuing one of his dreams, and we're trying to get out of debt so that we have more opportunity to enjoy our lives
Right.
and do the things that we love as
Good
a
for you.
family.
Good for
I
you.
think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think one of our biggest goals at the moment is finding time to have fun as a family.
Absolutely.
Sometimes we get caught up in the fact that we don't have a lot of time together as a couple, so we leave them at home. And then when we actually take them out and we go four-wheeling with them, or we go swimming with them, or we do things with them, we're like, wow, this is really fun being together as a
Right.
family. So I think that's where we're headed.
And it's that perspective, this new perspective you have it's not that you didn't want it. It's that it couldn't exist previously.
Absolutely.
It
Right.
wasn't able to exist. But
Right.
now, hey, everything's open. The doors are open. The vision's opening. The kids are actually welcome. Let's go have fun. Where
Right.
before it was, wait a minute. And
Right.
so that's great.
And I hate to say this, but there were many times that I felt like they were an inconvenience.
Oh, that's
And
right.
I know that I'm not the only one that feels
Sure,
that way,
sure.
but
Yeah.
That's right where I was going to go too. Is, as we've talked about all these things that get in the way of this relationship, unfortunately, our children can be sometimes the top on that list.
they can be.
Can be, absolutely. And that's a battle that we fight every day, is treating our children as though they're a blessing, not as an inconvenience. And trying to develop the same relationship that we're trying to develop with each other, trying to develop that same relationship with our children, so that they're just as important in this relationship as we are.
Right.
And
Right.
giving them the same respect that we want to give to each other.
Yeah, you're so much better equipped, from what I'm hearing from you, you're so much better equipped now to do that and pull them in. Mom and dad have to take care of themselves first. I
Absolutely.
get that. Because if mom and dad aren't good, the rest of the family's no good.
Absolutely.
So get mom and dad good, bring the family into it, and that's the magic. So congratulations on that. That's wonderful.
Thanks.
That's wonderful.
I do want to brag just a
Please,
little bit
please.
about something that I love about Christopher is
Yeah.
that when things were getting rocky and I was talking to him about how I was feeling and the insecurities that I was having in our relationship, he was always willing to work on it. And he's
That's key.
he's a good worker. I recently have had a couple of friends who are going through divorces, and the common thread that I see from an outside perspective, now I'm not trying to say that it's not something that they should do. I'm not trying to say those things. But something that I've seen is that one person or both people are not willing to come together and do what it takes to work on that relationship. And Chris has always been willing to do the hard to make us better, and I've really appreciated that about him.
So the key word is willing.
Yeah.
You could
Absolutely.
work through anything if you're willing.
Absolutely.
And the action comes
Yeah.
with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Go ahead.
Shared today. So, I was just thinking of a dinner that I had the other night with it was me and my wife were out on a date night, and then my brother-in-law came along because his wife was working at the restaurant we were at, and so anyway, we just we had lunch or dinner with him, and one thing he mentioned to us, he's just like, my goodness, we've been married for almost a year, and I saw her way more than when we were dating than I do as we're married. And I said, should buckle up because it's gonna stay that way for a while.
Absolutely.
So, and I know that so many married people are going through those struggles, and again, people think of it as a fairy tale, and we're gonna have the white picket fence, whatever, and then you realize like, oh my gosh, okay, we have to pay bills, both the husband and wife. I mean, when Jalissa and I first got married, we were both working a lot. And that's just the way it was. So I guess to the people who are watching, because I know there are people watching that are struggling in their marriage, what advice can you give to two busy spouses to try and keep it all together? Because your guys' life is very busy.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because as we try and do things together, we realize that both of us are crazy busy.
Yeah.
So it's always hard to make plans. But I guess what advice can you give to people who are kind of going through what you guys have been through on how to keep it all together? Or at least most of it together.
Yeah.
Do you have a thought?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Audrey asked me last night. She said, if you could write kind of a mantra of what you've learned in these last 10 years, what we've been through, she said, what would it be? And I started to tell her, and she goes, wait. Don't tell me. Let's not tell each other, and we'll say it at the podcast. Okay, great.
Cool.
So we're both
This
in
is
for
a
a surprise here.
surprise.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you led perfectly into that with that question there. So so I would say, if I had to put a mantra to it, it would be, if you love me, say it. And you guys are both nodding your heads, and you're probably thinking, yeah, tell your wife you love her, tell your husband you love him. That's not what I mean, because I would say most people out there who are in a relationship say that on a regular basis.
It just kind of becomes standard.
Exactly.
It's just something you get used to saying.
Yeah, exactly. And there's hard times when you don't really feel like saying it, and sometimes you say it anyway, right? What I mean by that is, say the hard things. I think, Audrey said what I used to tell her, well, you're perfect. I don't have anything. And I think that subconsciously I was trying to protect her from how I really felt because I didn't want to hurt her feelings.
I hate that.
She does hate that.
I hate that.
So what I mean by, if you love me, say it, be willing to say, we can't afford that. We probably shouldn't go out to eat tonight. Let's do this instead. Say the things that are hard. Tell your spouse, this really bugged me when you did that. Say those things because you love your spouse, because those things that you don't say are what creates the wedge in the relationship and creates the hard in the relationship. Yes, it's hard to say it in the moment, but it's harder when it's been festering for 6 months, a year, 5 years, whatever, and then all of a sudden you blow up and you have a big fight about it.
Great.
Say it in the moment, mean it, love you, move on.
Perfect. Okay.
I think the reason that I hate it so much is because yes, I cry. Yes, it hurts my feelings, but
Sure.
I would rather know those things, and you have to go through a little bit of discomfort seeing me cry, knowing that you hurt my feelings, but I'd rather have that happen than just be told that I'm perfect all the time when I know that I make mistakes.
That you're real.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think for me, if my advice, this sounds so cliche, but the thing that I've learned over our last 10 years of marriage in every aspect of my life, whether it's my spiritual well-being, my motherhood well-being, my relationship with my husband, my work, my fitness, you name it, it's what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Yeah.
And I know that's really cliche, and you're like, oh yeah, thanks, Audrey, but
I feel like that's a song too.
Might be, but it's true.
But it's true.
Yeah.
It's true. All of the things that we've gone through, all of the hard that we've gone through, and it was years. It was year 3 to year 7, and it just got worse and worse and worse. It wasn't something, and we still work on it till this day. Like, those things made us stronger.
Wonderful.
And I can stand here and I can say, I love my husband.
That's great. That is so
I
great.
know
Yeah.
that I love him. I don't
Yeah.
question that anymore.
Yeah, it's real, it's deep, you mean it, and that safety, again, that we talked about earlier, being able to say, sweetheart, I don't think we should right now, but hey, let's do this,
Yeah.
and it be okay,
Yeah.
because you have that safety to say, all right, and not someone go, not again, or whatever the thing may be.
And
It's-
hopefully you're unified in that.
yeah, and you
Absolutely.
both go, okay, you know what, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, guys, we sure appreciate you. We got to wrap things up. This is
Perfect.
great counsel, great story. I think that we can all relate to many degrees in this. wonderful. Thank you for sharing, being vulnerable, and sharing this story.
You're welcome.
I think it's probably helped more than you know. I think
Oh,
it's
I hope
wonderful.
so.
I hope so.
We hope so for sure.
Yeah,
Thanks.
guys, thanks again for tuning in. Make sure to join us again Wednesday at 1:30 next week. Guys, if you're watching on Facebook, please make sure to like and share our page. We want to get these stories to as many people as we can. So if you guys are watching this on Facebook, please make sure to share our page with anybody you think might be able to benefit from this. If you guys are listening to the podcast app, please make sure to subscribe, and then also on our YouTube channel. And guys, we will see everybody next week. Again, Chris and Audrey, thank you guys so much. We really appreciate it.
Ciao. Thank you.